Hi everyone, it's Raj and Gabby, and we're here to share a tip with you on how to keep your relationship playful, peaceful, and passionate.
Yes, as you know, we like to divide our content in how to keep the fights clean and how to keep the sex dirty. And this tip is all about how to keep the sex dirty beforehand. What do you do in advance to keep that sensual energy, that flowing between the two of you, so that, you know, it's not like this difficult path, this like Herculean effort to find your way back to being intimate again.
So many of you may know The Power of Habit, and in fact there's a book by Charles Duhigg called
bestseller,
The
it's a
Power
great
of
book.
Habit. And our lives are made up of habits that we've formed mostly unconsciously over our lifetime, and these habits run our lives.
You know, and a habit, it can be a good thing or a bad thing. You know, when you have your brain on autopilot, which is what a habit is, right? It frees up a lot of energy. But if that unconscious habit is taking you towards a behavior that pulls you away from your beloved, that keeps you from being intimate, versus a habit that frees up your mind, but you're building this habit, it's a new normal, it's something you do all the time that brings you closer to intimacy, that shift is going to have a really big difference, a big impact in your relationship.
So what we want to do here is dig a little bit into the anatomy of a habit.
Yes.
There's actually 3 parts to it.
Yes, so the first part of the process is the cue, and this is actually the most important part. It's the trigger, right? This is the thing that happens that has you just fall into that same behavior, which is the second piece of that process, which is the routine. That's the actual behavior. And then the third part is the reward. What's the benefit or the payoff that you get for actually going through that habit? And then of course that cycles back to the cue again. Now the key thing is if you can change the cues, you can really change the habit. So it doesn't have to be all about the behavior, but what's the environment? What are the behaviors that are getting in the way of the behaviors that you want to have happen?
So what you want to do here is look at what habits are pulling you away from a passionate, hot sex life in your relationship.
And what are the habits that would be pulling you towards a healthy, happy, and hot relationship?
So a habit that may be pulling you away from that could be working really hard all day, and at the end of the day
You're
exhausted and wanting to turn on the television. So breaking that really down might be turning on the television.
Yeah, you want to turn on the heat in your relationship, just turn off your television for a while. That's a good one. Now, what's a habit that will lead to your intimacy? I mean, one that I like to think of is taking a nice hot bath. That just makes me feel all relaxed. And, you know, sometimes I don't often have the time for it, but, you know, that is a habit that I can build. You know, I can even put that as a reminder in my calendar. Make sure, you know, at least every other Friday night that I'm getting, you know, at least a 20-minute bath that kind of relax me in that space.
We actually created a habit of taking a shower together in the evenings. We
Yes.
like to call it our water conservation program, but it's also a way to off-ramp from the functional of the day and into more of the sacred and sexual of the evening.
It's one of our habits. So we actually have a habit of showering every morning and every night together, and it really builds that intimacy between us, you know, versus if we had a habit of eating our lunches over our computers, that wasn't going to really build intimacy. So if your action option, should you choose to accept it, is to actually look in your relationship and say, what are the habits that you have that are pulling you away from intimacy in your relationship? And then go ahead and give yourself a moment to think about what are some of the habits that you'd actually like to have in your relationship. And remember to choose ones that you can create. Don't try to change your beloved. You change yourself. That means you're changing the cues, and the habits can change. Oh, tell them about vacations and the importance of vacations with habits.
So vacations are super important because they shift the cues. You're no longer around those cues that draw you into your habitual things that you do that may draw you apart.
Yeah,
These habits that create separation instead of more intimacy.
Yeah, it's a different environment, so it's a great place to change your cues. So if you want to change some habits, go on vacation. If you're going on vacation, it's a perfect time. You know, here we are, summertime, summer play. If you've got a vacation, pick a new habit, kick a new habit. It's time to play and experiment and have a great time with your beloved so that you can have a healthy, happy, and hot relationship. Invest a little bit in the before time, and then when you actually get into the seduction, and when you actually get into the during, you can really enjoy a much, much more intimate, sexy relationship.
You can learn this tip and a lot of other tips on how to keep the sex dirty by visiting our website, where we have a ton of blog articles, and we also have replays of our Fights Clean Sex Dirty TV show, where you can learn lots of hot tips on how to keep the sex dirty. Here's to you keeping the fights clean and the sex dirty, and
Save being nasty for your sex life. Bye-bye. See you soon.